Detroit's Renaissance Center. For nearly 50 years, it has stood as the tallest building in the state of Michigan and is one of the most recognizable icons for the city of Detroit. A massive complex boasting more square footage than New York City's Rockefeller Center, this towering structure of steel and glass dominates the skyline. It's more than just a collection of buildings. It's an icon that tells a story of Detroit, past, present, and future. It's also a 10-time recipient of architecture's most prestigious honor, the coveted Tyler Wilkie's Favorite Building in the Whole Wide World Award, beating the likes of the Burj Khalifa, One World Trade Center, and even the Great Pyramid of Giza. Join me in this 7-part series as I explore the history, legacy, and future of my favorite building. This is the RenCen. Hello and welcome back to my series on Detroit's Renaissance Center. This will be the final part for now, but I'm really excited to kind of close this chapter on this project that I've been working on all year. In the first 2 episodes, I covered the history and construction of the building, and I also gave a tour and a look at its operational life thus far. There's even a bonus 3rd episode with bad audio that has a more in-depth tour. You can find all of those and more on my channel if you're interested. Today, we're going to discuss the plans that have been proposed for the complex and what future awaits the Renaissance Center. To set the scene for today, I am a proud employee of a certain automaker, and it was actually my dream job as a kid to work there. I come from a car family, and we're loyal to this specific company. And that dates back to my paternal grandfather, pictured here, if you want to see where my rugged good looks come from. But being able to honor that heritage, the family heritage, means a lot to me. And there's also an opportunity to work at that company and, do what I can to nudge the future of transportation to make it better and more sustainable. I also love the city of Detroit, and I want to see it continue to grow and to thrive. I remember coming to Detroit as a kid when the city was at its worst. Like, most of the skyscrapers were abandoned, and the drive into the city was lined with houses that looked like they had been hit by a hurricane. But despite all of this, there was kind of something in the air. There was this inescapable grit and optimism. It honestly felt like you could feel the city's soul, and that the city was telling you that when life knocks you down, you get back up. And when it knocks you down again, you get back up again. And you do that as many times as it takes. I fell in love. And when I would stare up at that skyline, thinking about wanting to move here, the Renaissance Center was a gleaming glass reminder of what was possible. And if the countless hours that I've spent on a multi-part YouTube series didn't clue you in, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the RenCen. It really does mean a lot to me. On the day that the news came out, the GM was working with several partners, including Bedrock, the city of Detroit, and the state of Michigan, to determine a future of the site, and that a complete demolition was not out of the question. I received countless texts from just about everyone I know asking me if I was okay, with some letting me know that they were in fact holding space for me that day. I surprised many of them by saying that before I freaked out, I was waiting to pass judgment until I could see the official plan that was released, and if I could kind of look at that plan and determine if I felt that it would be a net positive or a net negative for the city as a whole. A little while later, they did jointly announce their plan, and it included the demolition of 2 of the 39-story office towers on the side of the complex facing the river, and the podium as well. The remaining towers would be separately accessed at the ground level. And all right, that is a series wrap on my Blender animation of the RenCen. You would be shocked to learn how much time it took me to just do that 15-second animation. So if you keep coming back, don't expect much more Blender in the future. I am bad and slow at it. But anyway, let's go back and take a look at this proposed plan. All right, so the space taken up by the 2 demolished towers would be turned into a public park and just public space in general that is part of the city's award-winning Riverwalk. And the new facades would be completed at the remaining towers, while the central tower would have the most grand of a new facade with this, they're showing like a big glass ring in the center. The other adjacent land currently used for parking, now that you don't have so many people having to go and use that for an office space, you don't have to use it as parking anymore. So they're converting that into what they're calling a 27-acre entertainment district. Some of the renderings that have been released show what I still find too much surface parking for comfort, while other renderings have shown instead a wide variety of buildings and public spaces. And I would love to see more of the latter, but if you have looked at the concept renderings that we got at from the Illiches for what Little Caesar Arena was supposed to be in District Detroit to what we actually got, I won't get my hopes up too high, lest I set myself up for disappointment. This is a good time to remind you that I do work for GM, but I am doing this video in a personal capacity for my YouTube channel, so my views are my own and they do not represent the opinions of the company. And yes, I'm regardless if I work there, I still would be kind of a fan. So I'm biased. So make sure you pay attention to that, when I'm talking. But with that being said, after thinking a lot about this plan, I am reasonably happy with it. I think if they were going to demolish anything more than what's outlined, they would have lost me. This, I think, is I've been telling people it's kind of like the bare minimum of what I'm okay with. And you try to take 1 inch more, mister, and you're gonna see. I think the no-brainer part of the decision is taking down the shared podium. People are constantly lost, and I know so many people who avoid going inside unless they absolutely have to. Businesses have struggled to survive inside as well because customers can't navigate the space. Removing the podium will drastically simplify how people move around the complex, and it would, most of it would now be outside when you're going between buildings. But yeah, for decades, that podium, it stood as kind of this functional fortress, and it was this huge barrier between downtown and the riverfront. This new promenade and open air design will finally give people just direct access to walk straight to the riverfront, breaking down these walls that have separated the Rensen from the rest of the city. Where I disagree with the plan is that I would have preferred keeping the 2 riverside towers up, still the podium going down with the open space in between them. I think part of it is just it's asymmetrical. I'll show the photo here. And maybe that's just something I'll get used to, but overall it is a little weird at first. According to the planners though, the complex is kind of too big for its own good, and that a portion of the towers needed to come down to kind of right size it. And this was kind of the optimal solution of how to deal with that. It's hard to maintain high occupancy with just this much space. I've talked about how there's more office space here than the entire Rockefeller Center in New York City, which takes up a much larger land footprint. And whether or not the towers are office or residential, vacancy can kind of become contagious. If the complex is half full, it'll feel like a ghost town, and fewer people kind of will want to be there, and then fewer people will visit. And then businesses could close, and then the situation could turn dire because, more and more people are leaving, and it's just hard to support something that's this massive. And so the idea is by shrinking the footprint, it'll be easier to maintain a high occupancy rate and create a vibrant and bustling atmosphere that will increase the odds of a successful and maintainable future. The planners also pointed out that the reason that they decided to remove the towers that they did was that from the front of the building, I guess, if you're on the Detroit side, it largely preserves the skyline silhouette because the 2 towers that are getting down were already basically mostly hidden, especially on the U.S. side. It'll look when you're far away, it'll look almost exactly like it does. Where it changes is on the river side. So when you're looking at it from Canada, yeah, that'll be a much more noticeable That'll be a much more noticeable change, especially up close. And that's the point of view that I shared in this image. One of the most notable opponents of this plan is a nonprofit organization called Preservation Detroit. And they seek to register the entire complex as a historic landmark and preserve it exactly as it is kind of, a frozen piece in time of this significant architectural work that other people in the future could observe and study. They also, in general, opponents are citing that the new Hudson building just got completed and that Bedrock, who owns that, is kind of tearing down some competitive office space. So those people are saying that they're, bolstering the new building by tearing down, which seems potentially wasteful. And when people have pushed back against the opponents of the plan, talking about how much money it would be required to modernize these for office or housing, and how an oversupply of one or the other, just kind of getting dumped onto the market, could have a domino effect that could take down a lot of real estate value throughout the entire city. The opponents are recommending a alternative to just automatically renovating it right now, and that is mothball the towers. So mothballing is essentially sealing a building to protect it from deteriorating. So the idea is to freeze the building in time so that when demand catches up and the parties at B have, had enough time to save up money and have a good plan, you could then just renovate the buildings in the future without the need to repair the building from severe neglect, because mothballing at least prevented it from, getting too bad and falling into disrepair. I should also note that there is an environmental concern about demolishing the towers. There's tons of carbon that's locked in the creation and construction of the building as well, that you're just kind of throwing into a landfill instead of taking advantage, because at this point it's already been a sunk cost. But I would say, like, given the current national demand for office space, which is plummeting, if the buildings were preserved, they would likely be converted into housing. The inventory of apartments and condos in downtown Detroit has steadily climbed over the past few years, with some investment basically based on pre-COVID level assumptions about workers wanting to live downtown near their offices. And so there's less people, less businesses have offices than were planned for, and therefore less people need to live in the city to be close to work. And so some people fear that in the downtown area specifically, we're kind of good right now. We don't need more, and that it would be a bad thing to add a lot of massive inventory at once by renovating these buildings, because that would drive down these prices, and then or drive down prices a lot. And then it could, go so far that developments can't generate the revenue to service their debt. And it could push them into bankruptcy, which creates a domino effect similar to when Detroit started losing, population, started in the late 60s. But then it's basically vacancies kind of become contagious. People leave, businesses close, and then the area just kind of has this feeling of oh, got to get out of here. So more people leave, more businesses close. When I'm downtown right now, I am constantly pinching myself at all of the new stores, bars, restaurants, and the people that are downtown enjoying them. It is awesome to see. But there is in the back of my mind that this worry that history could repeat itself. And I, would be really sad if things reverted to how they were in the late 2000s. And so, yeah, it is a concern that, the downtown area stays, a great, viable, healthy area. And I mean, I'm probably being too dramatic or cautious. But yeah, if you take a look at this insane amount of money that it would cost to convert these buildings that were never intended to be housing into housing, and then, yeah, those ripple effects that I mentioned into the rest of the city, it does seem like it's not completely unreasonable that they are kind of thinking about doing this. It at least has passed the threshold where I'm not they're being greedy and this is stupid. The mothballing option does seem appealing to me. It would be amazing if they could preserve these buildings and just kind of wait, for demand to catch up, and naturally in the future, oh no, we need more apartments, here you go. And then all the towers are still there, vibrant and fully used. But I think me and some other people are kind of just afraid of having two giant, massive buildings that are that vacant and everyone knows that they're empty would create an eerie atmosphere that would undermine the complex's success. Perception does matter, and empty towers looming over the entertainment district, I think it is possible they could sabotage a lot of the vision by just putting kind of a dampener, weird vibe in the air. I should mention that a common criticism of the Renaissance Center in general that I accidentally left out in my past videos was that some people kind of say that if they would have taken that initial $350 million it took to build the complex in the 1970s, and instead of doing one giant thing, spreading that money to, dozens of different smaller projects all throughout the city, that probably would have had a net better effect on the city's revival. And so I think that is something worth considering, is, kind of right sizing things, like spacing it out a little bit instead of having so much like funding and everything in just this one all or nothing project. Some people say that if the buildings are left as is, they're not going to be able to get tenants. No one's going to want to pay the money on their own to do the renovations that would be necessary. And, it could just be a can that gets kicked down the road until it eventually falls into disrepair and then it has to be demolished, in a decade or two, which would be very sad. And so part of this plan is trying to avoid that by adjusting the building so that it can be sustainable in the future. All in all, I do think that this plan has the potential to be good for the city. Detroit gets to keep its crown jewel in the skyline, albeit some of the original version demolished and written off as a failed experiment. There's no getting around that. But the Renaissance Center can be adapted into a broader vision that improves Detroit's downtown public experience with a really cool Navy Pier-inspired entertainment district. Instead of abandoning hope for the city's Renaissance and losing the entire complex, it would stand as a symbol that the dream is alive, and it could tell a powerful story. Sometimes you don't get it right the first time, and that's okay. You adjust, you learn, and you try again. Hopefully, someday, I can be in this new entertainment district, shocked as ever that the city has continued to grow, walking past thousands of fellow Detroiters, old and new, enjoying the city together. And then I will be able to look up and see her, standing tall and proud over the city that is doing better than some could have ever imagined. The Renaissance, however hard fought, was a success.